My name is Samantha Higginbotham, and this is my Level 4 Technology Integration Project. My goal for this project is to create a project for students that gets them excited about history, a subject often labeled as dull. This project was designed with upper-level high school students in mind. It allows students to use the internet to investigate and think like historians, interpreting their own evidence. In a lecture held at the University of Georgia, social studies education researcher Bill Gaudelli explained that textbooks are written with surface-level thinking. Furthermore, these textbooks are often taught as the final word on aspects of history, when in fact they are an author's interpretation of historical evidence. For the purpose of this project, students will work in small groups of 2 to 3 to create an argumentative podcast. By argumentative, I mean similar to an argumentative essay. The groups will be arguing to prove their point. The students will be using several forms of technology, including Web 2.0 and mobile learning. The podcast will be created using the iOS application Opinion. Here is a small clip with a very quick overview of the application so you can see it in action along with its ease of use.
Opinion makes podcasting easy and human. Just hit record and open your heart. Trim your clips in an instant. Rearrange them using drag and drop. Get Opinion today from the App Store.
This is what you see when you open the application. Each section is a different clip of the podcast. So, the students are able to pause their conversation so there isn't lagging if the students forget what to say. To begin a new clip, you press the red circle to record. This pops up to let you know that recording has begun. If you'd like to import audio, you can do so by tapping the button in the middle at the top. This can allow students to play clips of audio or a theme song if they so choose. Here, students can name their podcasts. There is also a place for the students to enter a short description about their podcast. Once they do, they are provided with a link so the podcast can be accessed at a later time. The podcast can also be shared on social media or through email. Here's a screenshot of what it looks like if you'd like to trim out parts of your podcast for reasons such as a period of silence or someone getting flustered and saying the wrong thing. Prior to the podcast, the groups will need to scour the internet to find primary sources about the Cold War. They can use any website, including Galileo or one of the most popular Web 2.0 websites, YouTube. Wikipedia is not an option. Based on the brief overview I would provide and the brief research, the groups would form an argument with at least 3 pieces of evidence. The argument will be based off a current event the students feel is directly influenced by something that occurred during the Cold War. In other words, their argument will be about how certain events during the Cold War have an impact on a global issue occurring today. After making an outline of what they will say, the groups will begin recording the podcast. It should be well-informed, thoughtful, and genuine. Once the podcast is finished, the students will submit their podcast in the discussion section of Blackboard. Each individual student will be assigned a podcast to listen to. Using a different piece of evidence, one that has not been used for the podcast, the student will write a response that is at least 200 words. The response will either reinforce the argument heard in the podcast or argue against it. Using the subject of the Cold War utilizes the key subject of history and government, and possibly economics, depending on what the groups are attempting to argue. Additionally, the 21st century theme of global awareness is used by making the issue relevant to today using current events. This project allows students to work on their information and media skills. Using primary sources from the Cold War offers students a range of media from newspaper or magazine articles to radio clips to newscasts. By showing students that the news is offered in more ways than just a post on Facebook, they may be more willing to explore that in the future. As for information literacy, the skill is developed when students are able to choose the information that is important to them. Sifting through primary sources about the Cold War is virtually never ending, and they should get practice on what is and what is not important. Several life and career skills are also developed. The group members must be flexible to make collaboration easier. The individual students responding to podcasts must adapt and be prepared to discuss an aspect of the Cold War completely different from their own. Furthermore, students must be respectful within their groups and in the responses, which helps develop their social skills. Finally, the students must be productive so the podcast will run smoothly, and members must be able to hold each other accountable so quality pieces of evidence are used. Finally, under learning and innovation skills, critical thinking, communication, creativity, and collaboration are used. While I'm on the subject of the 4 C's, I'd like to go into depth about how it is utilized in this project. Communication is used several times. At the beginning of the project, the group members must decide on what they will argue, what pieces of evidence should be used to support it, and what aspect of today's society is influenced by what happened in the past. Then, during the podcast, the students will communicate freely. Yes, there will be an outline, but on the rubric, I strongly encourage ad-libbing to promote a genuine conversation about the topic among the group members. Additionally, communication is used again when the individual students respond to the podcasts with their short responses. Critical thinking is an important aspect of education that is often left out of lessons. By having students discover their own pieces of evidence, they are deciding what is and what isn't important about the Cold War. Furthermore, by having the students discuss the evidence and give their opinions, they are interpreting the data, which results in critical thinking. Creativity is used by both the student and the teacher. For the student, they have the liberty of choosing what they want to argue and making the evidence and current event fit. For the teacher, he or she can be creative by having students do this podcast rather than just a lecture or a speech. This project can also be adapted to other forms of newscasts, allowing the teacher to be creative during planning. Finally, collaboration is a huge aspect of this project. The group members must work together efficiently to make a number of decisions, like what pieces of evidence to use and what to argue. Doing so in a respectful manner is something that should be taught in schools so it continues even after their education. There are a few limitations I discovered. The first is at least one student must have access to a device with iOS on it to run the application. If devices such as these are not already provided for the school, then this could cause issues. Additionally, students using their own devices might cause behavior issues, encouraging the students to remain off task. Also, many schools don't allow the use of cell phones in classrooms in their code of conduct, which could cause a conflict. The next limitation is the amount of time it would take to complete this project. My estimates are at about 1 week of class time if the class is only 50 minutes. In a school culture that has a large emphasis on completing standards in a timely fashion, this could cause the teacher to fall behind in tackling the required standards for the standardized tests at the end of the year. Finally, the Opinion app only allows you to make a 10-minute podcast for free. Anything above that you must pay. This could limit the students if they would like to discuss the topic further. In conclusion, this project would be an easy way to engage students and motivate them to find interesting aspects of a subject that is often overlooked. Students are engaged because they are creating their own content without realizing it. To them, the ability to take control of the lesson keeps them interested and excited about the Cold War. Furthermore, they are developing social skills that can be utilized throughout their education experience, into the workplace, and throughout the community. By learning skills such as critical thinking, communication, and collaboration at a young age, they are able to make thoughtful judgments, which can reflect in their own lives and the lives of those around them. Dawn Chenu, a social studies education researcher, argues that citizenship is one of the most important aspects of someone's life. She continues that it is more than just voting, but also belonging to something and doing your part. By incorporating a fun technology project, students are able to learn respectful ways of being a citizen, which can help America grow to be a more thoughtful, civil, and considerate place. Here I've given the citations for the two outside works I referenced by William Gaudelli and Dawn Chenu. Thank you.